Evening, everybody. It's Jason Burns from D22 Zone here, doing the weekly D22 podcast. Sorry we couldn't do it on Monday. One of our associate editors was getting drunk, but we'll gloss over that bit.
I want to find out who that person is and be angry.
Exactly, yeah. As always, I'm joined by Ben. Say hi, Ben.
Hello.
Alex.
Hello.
And Max.
Hello.
Unfortunately, we would get Ollie in today, but he's lagging, which isn't good. So, some of the topics of interest today. As always, we talk about what games we've been playing this week. We're obviously going to talk about Skyrim because the Steam Workshop and how there's so many awesome mods and bits and bobs to play around with. We're then going to talk about Crusader Kings 2. Ben has been playing that quite in depth, so I'm going to ask him a load of questions. I downloaded it today, so I haven't played any though, so that might be a problem on my part, but we'll gloss over that one. And then last but not least is obviously Mass Effect 3 demo came out today, but we're just going to have a general chat about Mass Effect, and Max has played the demo today, no one else has, so we might just ask him a few questions here and there. Also, do expect a Mass Effect sort of video or impressions video or something which will be posted later this week, as after this me and Max are going to go have a quick game of it on the multiplayer side of things. So, if I can start this, what games have you been playing this week? That question goes to Ben.
Well, obviously, lots and lots of Crusader Kings 2, because that's a game that you've just got to put so many hours into to kind of see everything that's there, I think. But little things on the side, things like Dust Force, still putting some hours into that because it's an awful lot of fun.
Is it because you want to beat Max's score?
No, not really, because actually since the launch, a lot of the scores got reset, and so on most levels I have a score and he doesn't at the moment.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Oh crap!
Yeah, so I don't know whether you've got the self-control to get back into that and reset all of your cool scores, but I mean I need some competition really, so I would encourage you to get into that.
Talk here.
But yeah, other than that, I actually just got back into playing sort of all the various shmups in my collection as kind of research for my shmups piece, which is going on the site at the moment. But so yeah, that's things like Waves and Beat Hazard and Scoregasm, all of which are tremendously entertaining and fun, and Super Crossfire.
Super Crossfire. Yeah, everyone go read them. They're fantastic. Ben's sort of doing like a diary, story 1, story 2 sort of thing. So go check them out on the D22 Zone website. If you don't know it by now, why don't you know it? That's the question. Anyway, which game have you been playing, Alex, this week?
I've been playing Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, which I did a first impressions piece for from the demo.
Ah,
It's the latest thing from Big Huge Games.
The biggest.
I'm a big fan. Big fan. I put 20 hours in over 2 days, so it's kind of close to my Skyrim addiction.
Don't you have a full-time job?
Yes, I do.
So
Good lord, when do you sleep?
You get home at 5.
Get home at 6, thank you.
Hold on, you get home at 6. You've played 20 hours in 2 days. So that means you played to like something like 4 in the morning. They got up at 7. Oh,
Meh.
great. Anyway, what has Kingdoms shown you? You know, what's good about it?
Well, it's a lot more epic than I thought it was going to be. After those 20 hours, I'm probably a quarter to a third of the way through the main story with one character.
That's fairly serious then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really deviated very much, and I haven't started any secondary or tertiary characters as yet, but I'm loving it.
Is it a linear thing, Kingdoms of Amalur, or is it more of a sort of an open world thing? I mean, how comparable is it to Skyrim, that sort of thing?
Its closest game would probably be Fable.
Okay, so it's a sort of a Fable for grown-ups.
Yeah, it doesn't have the this is good and this is bad elements. There's obviously choices you can make. For example, letting people that backstab you run away, persuading them to bribe you, or just killing them on the spot. But there's no extra consequences like there are in Fable.
And you marry a new woman in every village.
Haven't found that option as yet, usually because everyone's dead, but I'm getting there.
Nice.
Oh, okay. What was the question I was going to ask you about Kingdoms? Oh yeah, have you had any technical issues yet? Because I know a lot of people that tried to install the demo had a few technical issues here.
I had issues with the demo. I started off with a black screen, and then every time I ran into a dungeon, it would just keep on running when I got in. But the actual game itself, I haven't had a single issue as yet.
Yeah, I had a few problems with the demo, but it was just I think it was an ATI problem. You just had to disable a couple of graphics options.
Bloody ATI, man! Oh.
Didn't they push a driver update recently? Maybe that's fixed a
Yeah,
bunch
they
of the
did.
problems.
Yeah, true. Oh, okay.
All in all, I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
That's pretty cool. First person I've known so far. Lol, only joking. Alright then, Max, what have you been playing?
Not much. I played and completed Xenoclash over the course of
yes.
this morning and
retro.
yesterday. Yeah, well, because obviously the Valentine's Day Indie Royale bundle emerged
Of
on
course.
over the weekend, reminding all of us that we had no one in our lives to care for. So instead, let's spend Valentine's Day playing one of these 4 games in the bundle, which is what I did. So yeah, I played Xenoclash. Yeah.
Good man.
Obviously, Xenoclash, Horde, Loom, and Soulcaster 1 and 2 are the games in the pack. But Xenoclash has always been the one that piqued my interest throughout. I've always been waiting for it to kind of go on sale, but this was a good opportunity to pick it up, and I wasn't disappointed. It was quite good.
Quite good. So, what, 7 out of 10?
If we had to break it down like that.
So, yeah, you've completed then, got right the way through to the end.
Yeah.
And how did you feel like the beat 'em up mechanics kind of worked? Because I don't know, it seemed like it divided people on launch whether the first person beat 'em up thing was something that actually worked, or whether it just got a bit whether I don't know, the metaphor didn't quite work, the controls didn't quite sort of translate to that kind of point of view.
I think, in the loosest sense of the word, it did work, but there's a few issues with it. I mean, there's very little outside of those first-person beat-em-up mechanics to the game at all. I mean, the game is rightly praised for kind of its art style and things like that, but every time you kind of come into a beat-em-up scenario, it'll pop up on the screen showing you like a Street Fighter-esque versus screen, and every time I saw one of those, I was just dreading it, because when you fight groups of people, that's when the combat starts to fall apart. Like one-on-one, well-timed blocks and dodges kind of open up counter-attack opportunities and stuff like that. But the problem with group, obviously, is when one of those opportunities presents itself, you're quickly, punched in the back of the head by a weird kind of pig man. So yeah, it's frustrating, but
it's true that I think that sort of the beat 'em up phases. I mean, you're right. You get that sense of dread when it pops up the versus screen, because a lot of them they're probably the least enjoyable part of it. Because a lot of what's great about it is the world design, and I also think it was just beautifully paced, so it doesn't throw you into a beat 'em up every
particular level, without
5
giving too
minutes.
much away. That it's like a shooting gallery. So you're kind of there reaches a halfway point in the game where you then start to go back to where you came from. And it's a very, very slow-paced boat ride, like this one stage, and it was quite a welcome break. Obviously, there are shooting sections, but there's quite a lot of dialogue between the kind of 3 characters, which is quite nice.
Yes, it's a sort of a gentle expository sort of scene as you drift into the next. I'm trying to remember where that came in the plot. I think it sort of acted as a kind of a halfway point.
Yeah, you obviously you meet a character who is completely omnipotent, who is aware of kind of what's been and what between both of the characters, and the one character with you, the female character, who is quite a strong character, I think. It's very much like Alex in the Half-Life series. She isn't aware of anything that's gone on up to that point, and then again, neither is the player. So it's interesting, that whole scene, because it's about her lack of knowledge compared to the other two characters on the boat. It is quite nice. The ultimate reveal at the end of the game isn't as shocking as I perhaps was kind of hoping it would be.
No,
But no,
I think
it
they
was
kind of
good
foreshadow it as well.
story-wise. They do a little bit, yeah.
Now,
I just remember being stuck on this one fight though. There's this assassin that they send after you, and I think there's one of the later fights of him, and it's easily the hardest fight in the game. And I think so. There's a point that you're meant to win up to a bit, and then he's meant to basically kick your ass, and then it'll just let you progress through the story if it does. But it's one of those things where you're meant to lose and you don't realise it, so you keep quick load. And B, I don't know, it feels frustrating. I think there is meant to be a challenge where you can actually beat him up, fight the way down, and then win at the end, and there's some achievement for that or something. But God knows. I mean, after I'd sort of played through the first chunk of that fight, whatever, 20 times or something, I sure as hell wasn't
it's
sticking
quite
around.
a linear experience. But then, as I kind of got to the end of the game and the credits were rolling, I was having a look through the achievements, and I finished the game with 4 out of 22. And obviously there's a challenge mode in there as well, fighting waves of enemies and stuff like that. But then there's a lot of other things, like other bits and pieces in there that I didn't realise that would probably give quite a lot of, significant amount of replay value to Xenoclash. And for the price that the indie bundle is at the moment, which as of this second is now closed actually, but it was like £3, so
It's on sale fairly regularly.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think sort of closing comments, I'd definitely recommend that one to anybody that hasn't played it yet. I'd say get it cheap and play it on easy, but the imagination that goes into the setting and the levels and everything is just phenomenal.
okay, and personally, I don't know what Xenoclash is. I know, it's really bad of me. So what about, if you could describe it in 2 sentences, how would you describe it? What is it?
It's a
First-person
beat 'em up set in a very peculiar and well-designed fantasy world.
Excellent. Okay, that sums it up. I'm guessing you'll be putting a review out either.
Yes,
when? I don't know.
It's going to be tomorrow or the day after, before
Excellent.
the weekend.
So, because this will be recorded, this is recorded on Thursday, and it's published on the
Today's
same
Wednesday.
day. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
shut
I
up.
mean, yeah.
Okay, so to me, the question comes on to me now. What have I been playing? I've been playing websites all week. Yay! I've been playing no games, believe it or not. I've been playing the odd Mountain Blade session Ollie, but it's all been concentrated on this new website, which is top secret stuff at the moment, of course. Like I've mentioned, some of the Steam updates, and it's coming along really well. Actually, March 1st is our official relaunch, and we're going to go on from there, really. So far, though, website is going well.
Playing websites is pretty fun. The tutorial goes on way too long, though, I think.
The genre, stressful. I think that's the best.
You
way
have
to
been very
describe it.
stressed.
Yeah.
Final boss is killer.
Final boss, pretty killer, yeah. Yeah, and it's pretty time consuming as well, I could say. You would pour at least over 1,500 hours like I did in Guild Wars. Jesus. Okay then, right. So what's our next point of call topic? we've all tried Skyrim. Again, I presume. Have we tried it since the Steam workshops? I certainly have-ish, you could say. Like, I had all my mods installed about a week before Steam workshops, and it took me friggin' ages to download them. Bloody ages to install them, and then this comes along. I'm just like, oh. And then I have to download a 3 gig update as well, which with my internet...
Yeah, the high-res texture pack.
Oh, with my internet, I could run to, like, wherever this texture pack is and run back before my internet's downloaded. It was terrible, but I've got there eventually, and I love the Steam Workshop. I think I love the rating system in it. I love the fact that you can just go, "Yep, that looks good. I'll have that." I think it's really well put out. What do you guys think?
I've only
It is
downloaded.
good. It is very good.
I've only downloaded 1 or 2 mods through the workshop, but I'm enjoying them.
What mods have you downloaded? Out of curiosity.
Oh, now you're asking. I'll bring them up in the background while someone else explains something else.
It's a porn mod, isn't it? He's downloaded 3 porn mods.
Mod or that cosplay mod that I posted on the website the other week, wasn't it? You saw them.
The Sexy Ladies of Skyrim calendar.
Yeah, exactly. How about
I
you,
actually
Ben,
haven't. I've not actually downloaded any mods for it yet. I downloaded the high-res texture pack and fired that up and was like, "Yep, that's very pretty." And actually, it kind of needed that from release. But hey, I'm glad to get it. Even this late on, I can't quite bring myself to install any mods, even though there are some good-looking ones out there. Partly because I think the creation kit's only just been released, and so we'll see a lot more mature mods. Maybe in sort of a month or so, and I might come back to it then. I also kind of feel like, because I'm still on my first playthrough, I also kind of feel like I should finish the game once without any mods. I don't know, there's some sort of purist in the back of my mind saying, no, you can't possibly introduce all these extra baddies and weapons and things when you're still playing through and still really discovering new loot and new mechanics and that kind of thing.
Well, like for me, I'm the opposite. Like, I wouldn't go for those kind of mods, like the enemies and the weapons and that kind of thing. What I enjoy is the kind of ambient mods. So, like Jason and I both, like before the high-res texture pack came out, we were downloading things like high-res foliage, like there's improved water, like improved weather, improved lighting, like all of these kind of things, like really improve the atmosphere, which is already
there was a sound mod as well, wasn't there?
I was just about to say that. That is the best out of them all. Jesus. And that Sound of Skyrim is fantastic.
What is it?
It basically reproduces all the sounds in Skyrim. Obviously you used to play Dare Defeat Max. Did you ever install like any sound packs or weapon mods on there?
Yeah, probably.
Like I remember installing one with the sniper rifle, especially on the Allies side, and like before it would just like and it wouldn't echo. But when I installed this new sound pack mod for this sniper rifle, it lasted forever. You could hear the echo go on forever, and that was wicked. And it's almost the same in this, not obviously in a sniper rifle term, but it echoes and it just gives you more, what you said previously, ambience. It's epic, and I think sound is a bit underrated these days, to be honest.
Well, it's one thing the Battlefield series has always been praised for, is having excellent sound design.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that, even if it's taken a modder to do it, like really like good echoes in like, sounds in dungeons and things like that. That's pretty cool.
It would be great to see a few mods that just patch up some of the things that Bethesda have not like failed at as such, but just are kind of a bit mediocre at. So things to improve the sound, obviously. The animations, I've always thought Bethesda... I mean, the animations in Skyrim are fine, but they could be a lot better.
True, yeah, no, I agree.
Is there anything to fix that sorting interface yet, though? Because that is horrible.
Yeah,
there's a couple
both
of...
Jason and I got a Sky UI, I think it's called, which is so much better. It really is good.
Okay, that might be my first mod then. And I might try the sound one, since you're praising it to the skies.
Well, the best thing about that Sky UI mod is, in items, it used to just display. Well, it does just display one long list. There's no sort of like, oh, I don't know actually. Is there a filter option in the original UI of Skyrim?
Well, sort of, in that there's the categories, but
Yeah,
they
at
don't
the
work
bottom.
like filters. It just works like, well, like a tab. You can't sort of apply multiple filters or exclusions or anything.
This one sort of displays it in a spreadsheet, and
Yeah,
I
if you
know
look at
Oh, that was-
if you look at the bottom of TeamSpeak,
how much it
Absolutely
is.
what was missing. Yeah, okay, so you've got sort of weight and value columns next to the actual items, which is something that was missing hugely before. I mean, you have to pick through your entire inventory to find out what it is that's weighing you down 15 pounds so you can't walk anywhere.
Yeah.
Can you sort by those?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
It looks like you can sort by name, potentially weight and value. I don't know.
Either way, it's still a tremendously,
It's basically
tremendous improvement.
That's what it really is anyway. Yeah, Max, not Max, Alex, back onto you. What were you saying previously about which mods you installed?
I've installed the faster basic horses, just because you can actually run quicker than the horses go.
It's true,
It's-
the horses were pretty slow.
Fair enough. Yep.
I downloaded the Complete the Skyforge mod because I thought it daft that the best forge in the world would be missing half the equipment you need to do stuff with.
Yeah, point. Okay.
I got textures for enhanced blood for the dragon leech masks to make them all actually look different, and the HD textures.
Okay, fair enough. That sounds like a hefty size.
Yeah.
And any others, or is that just the three?
And a mod to stop the guards saying, I used to be an adventurer, but I got shot in the knee with
Oh,
an arrow.
what? There should be a mod that makes them say only that.
Just turn all dialogue into the game.
I
I
loved
used to
it.
be an adventurer like you.
I loved it because when I was walking up to Whiterun, when I got back into the game after a month break, the first guard I met said it, and it just put me in hysterics. It really is quite funny. Obviously, over and over again. Oh yeah, stupid meme.
But in that Game Jam video that we posted on the website, with obviously for those who haven't seen it, Bethesda do a Game Jam where people can show off their ideas and prototypes and things like that. Obviously, the team did so hard at work on Skyrim. What they obviously said was they had a week to create anything that they could think of, as long as they had to build it within Skyrim. And there are all kinds of things in there that hopefully the kind of modding tools people will kind of seek to recreate. But throughout the entire video, which has a questionable soundtrack, I think it's maybe the most annoying music ever. It has constant guards saying that phrase. They must say it 100 times in that video.
Because they remix it up into a whole bunch of other dialogue as well.
Well, I think, and I've got to be quick on this, Skyrim, I think the best part of that video, there was some bloody good things in that video I remember watching. Personally, for me, I thought the spears was wicked. Oh, why did they put
mounted
spears?
combat.
Yeah, mounted combat, that was fantastic. Just
See, for me, it was like more environmental stuff, because obviously they had foliage that was affected by seasons and things like that, and time of day.
Yeah, true. Okay, I've got to move on. Next topic is Crusader Kings 2. Ben's been playing that religiously this week. Have you been enjoying it? Is it there for the fine strategist like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point that you mentioned it as a strategy, because I think that's my major objection to it so far. Actually, is that it's hard to really see how your strategy is kind of affecting the game. So, I mean, Paradox have got these different flavors of grand strategy games. So obviously, you've got the Crusader Kings series, which is very much focused on a single family, a sort of a dynasty in Europe, and third time of the Crusades, and you're trying to preserve that family and make sure there are plenty of heirs, and you expand the size of your holdings, and inherit and marry into good families and that kind of thing. As contrasted with something like Europa Universalis, which is sort of half economy, half military diplomacy, espionage. That kind of, it's a very much a grand strategy where you're taking control of a nation, and then you've got Victoria and Hearts of Iron, and those are very much more pure strategies. Well, possibly there's a sort of a spectrum at work. But the trouble I find with Crusader Kings is that because you're controlling just a family, you get kind of buffeted about by the winds of change and chaos much more than if you were controlling an entire country, say. So maybe you're the, I don't know, Duke of Northumberland and the Count of Leicester or whatever, but maybe you could just get ill and die in your sleep in the next couple of years, and all of that would be passed on to your son, who's worthless and is disliked by everyone, and he's got a crap military stat or something. Maybe he's got a great diplomacy stat, so maybe he can make friends with people. But then when someone decides to attack him, then he's just screwed. There's nothing he can do.
Yeah.
And you can kind of sit there and you can.
Questions.
Sorry,
go on. Okay, I have two questions, sorry. It's obviously I asked you this the other night, but for our listeners, firstly, is Crusader Kings 2 very family orientated? Secondly, Europa Universalis 3, the problem that I always used to pose, I used to be, presented upon, was leaders who were just crap. Like, seriously, like 1 or 2 stars in all sort of military diplomacy, yada yada yada. And I don't know in Europa, my knowledge doesn't go this far, but if you can, sort of better the outcome of your next leader becoming, increased diplomacy or military, that sort of thing. Is it the same in Crusader Kings 2? Can you actually change and adapt and increase the statistics of your leader?
Obviously, the leader stats play a much bigger part in Crusader Kings, and so as I say, if you've got a crap leader coming up, then it's really going to affect you. Your whole game is going to potentially disappear down the pan. Whereas, I don't know, in Europa Universalis, you've got a crap leader coming up. You can mitigate against that to an extent by kind of making peace with everyone. Building up a large economy and sitting there and just trying to weather the storm, and you wait for the really good leader to come along, and that's when you make your offensive or your huge diplomatic outreach program where you annex various states by being super nice to them.
I like how you say the outreach diplomatic.
Yeah.
You just know that's raiding other countries.
well, basically, yeah. The diplomatic program in Europa Universalis 3 was all about making other people like you enough so that they become your vassals.
And then annex them.
Yeah, and then annex them.
When they least expect it.
Yeah.
But no, so you can change your upcoming leader stats in Crusader Kings, because whilst they're still children, between the ages of 0 and 16, you can have them be educated. So you can designate one of your courtiers that has a high diplomacy stat to be their tutor, and then they'll learn diplomacy. Or you can put them under the tutelage of a priest, and they'll gain what's called learning, which is kind of technology in medieval times. And or you can, send them off to be trained up by the local sword fighter or whatever, and they'll gain great martial stat. In fact, probably Crusader Kings 2 is at its best when you feel like you're part of the cast in like sort of Game of Thrones or something. You've got your dynasty of children. You have your loyal courtiers and your not so loyal courtiers and your network of spies, and you're trying to maneuver your children into the position of best advantage. And that's where it shines. That's where it feels really good. You feel like you're a scheming bastard or an honourable head of a grand family that stood for hundreds of years, which is lovely because apart from anything else, the Game of Thrones game that did actually come out last year was deeply mediocre and failed to live up to that promise entirely. the trouble is, no matter how much you scheme and plan and that sort of thing, just some days you'll get a crap leader up next. He'll turn out to be homosexual and won't have any kids, and your great king just dropped dead of pneumonia. And I don't know, there's kind of very little it feels like you can do about that. Nobody wants to marry you anymore because you're a horrible syphilitic king, and I don't know. I think it would be really interesting to play it in a multiplayer and see how that changes the game up a bit. But in single player, it can feel a little bit like you're just sort of not even battling against chaos. You just feel like there's so little you can actually do. You're just kind of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
And is it like a turn-based sort of, not turn-based, I mean, you advance so many years ahead, you can speed up.
It works the
time.
same way as Crusader Kings 1, Europa Universalis 3, all the other sort of Paradox grand strategies. In that what they call it pausable real time, but that's kind of inaccurate to a point. In that the game does advance by ticks. There are turns in that nothing gets resolved on a lower resolution than 1 day. Between the start and end dates, 1399 to 1452, I think, off the top of my head. No, hang on. 1066 to 1452. 1399 is Europa Universalis. Anyway, so everything gets resolved on a day-by-day basis, and days just sort of tick past. You just kind of leave the game, and it's like it's hitting end turn for you every 2 seconds or something. And on the scope of a day, really very little happens. Armies move. They beat one another up if they happen to be standing in the same place. And there's very, very tiny random chances of various events happening, various plans coming to fruition, that kind of thing. And you get this sort of trickle of money that comes in, I think, monthly rather than daily.
Oh, right, yeah.
And you can speed that up. So that you're ending your turn essentially once every second or once every half a second, or the days are just flying past in a blur, and that's fine. That's reasonably manageable because a lot of the game is kind of waiting around and waiting for your councillors to report back and say, "Aha, yes, I have faked these documents. You now have a claim on the whole of Wales. Please go and invade at your leisure." That sort of thing.
Okay, that sounds
Alternatively, yeah, you can pause it whilst you're trying to search through the entirety of the phone book of Europe to find a suitable match for your, courtier's niece who suddenly demands they want to be married. You just, pull out the phone book, flip through. That's about the right age. You marry her. There we go. Problem solved.
Well, your first impressions, your impressions actually are up on the website. You've got a review coming out, later this week or next week?
Probably next week.
No pressure.
I think.
Next week, okay.
But probably next week.
Expect a review from Ben on Crusader Kings 2 for next week. But I've got to move on.
And Ben, expect your P45 in the post.
I've got to move on to our last point, and that is obviously Mass Effect. Now, if we can just spend a few minutes on this one, because we're already over our time anyway. Mass Effect 3 demo obviously came out today. Yesterday, because obviously it's Thursday today. Has anyone played it yet? Have you played, apart from Max, has anyone played the originals? Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, I've played the originals.
Let's go over to Max and hear his very first impressions on what he thinks of the Mass Effect 3.
Good it is. Those are
good.
my initial impressions.
Yeah.
Mass Effect's always been one of those series though that on paper I should hate it. Like I'm not a big fan of sci-fi. I'm not a big fan of third-person shooters, and I'm not really a big fan of BioWare games. So it's 0 out of 3. But there's something about the way that it all kind of merges together that makes it quite enjoyable. Like Mass Effect 1, some people herald as the best of the trilogy. But for me, the move away from like a traditional RPG to what people now find quite distancing is obviously now that it's more of an action game with RPG elements, but then some people find it not enough of an action game. It's almost its own kind of game now, Mass Effect, and I quite enjoy it. The demo's pretty over the top. It includes the first level, what I presume to be the first level in the game, and then a stage from later on which has some returning characters from the Mass Effect series. When you're a little bit higher level, you've got some powers to level up and things like that. And it's good. It is a good demo. And it's got a multiplayer component, which we will be playing at some stage, probably tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
Does it give you any sort of open kind of hub areas to wander around, or is it just two sort of basically the dungeons from the earlier games? You just go straight through from beginning to end, kill everything on the way, and there's a boss?
It is quite linear. Like, it's one thing I think that people have always had a problem with Mass Effect. Obviously, in the first game, you have a Citadel, which is kind of your hub area, but then all of the levels obviously take place elsewhere, and they're all fairly linear, which is obviously where people who are perhaps used to the BioWare RPGs of old, when you've got like nigh on unlimited choice in party members, weapons, conversation, like direction in the game and stuff like that, people will find it quite alienating. But at the same time, having a more directed experience is beneficial. People who maybe don't have, maybe not the attention span, but like the older games like your Baldur's Gates and your Planescape Torments, they're quite dense and quite difficult to get started in. But this, as a series, and I suppose Dragon Age in the same way, you can just kind of dive straight in and go for it.
Does this give you much of a hint at the kind of the storyline for the third installment? And can I hazard a guess that it will involve you being the nominated savior of the universe from something that threatens it from the deep, dark history of the universe?
Again.
And
well, not to praise
it's desperate,
BioWare
and
too
you have
much,
to absolutely get on it
think,
right now, except that you can go and shag some aliens first.
Well, I think you may have just spoiled the story. Obviously, no one knows what the story of Mass Effect 3 is, but I imagine
Personally, I'm not
probably
going to buy it
somewhere along
anymore.
those
Ben's
lines.
ruined it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the demo opens with Shepard just having been, he's been decommissioned after following Mass Effect 2. The world has been
So
saved.
hang on, you mean she?
She. For
You
those
mean
of
she's
you
been
who
decommissioned?
choose to live your lives that way. And Shepard has been decommissioned following Mass Effect 2. But unfortunately, no one heeded Shepard's warnings about the Reapers and how powerful they were.
Surprise!
And shock horror, they've arrived on your doorstep on Earth. And there's a very dramatic scene, kind of as Earth is being destroyed, like the city that you're in, where Shepard turns to his supervisor or his leader and says, "I don't take orders from you anymore. I've been decommissioned." And then he gets his medal thrown back at him and says, "Consider yourself rehired." And that's the end of that first section. It was very dramatic. It was a little bit of a bromance, but at the same time, it's evocative, and it's good. Like, for those of you that play Mass Effect 2, the opening of Mass Effect 2, I think, is maybe the strongest the strongest section of the game, and one of the strongest openings I can remember at all, as the Normandy's kind of being destroyed around you and like crashing to the surface of a planet and stuff like that. And it looks like it's going to continue in that same kind of vein.
Interesting.
So, go
Go
on.
on, sorry, Ben. Well, I'm just gonna. I was just gonna finish off there, but Ben, do you want to answer that quick question?
Sorry, what was the question?
I don't know. You was about to respond to Max, but
I was just going to say it's going to be one essentially for people who've played the first two and are desperate to see the end of it, but I don't think anybody else is going to want to jump in at number 3, essentially.
Well, I think Mass
Because
Effect
the
2
attraction is
does quite a
entirely
good
the
job.
storyline now, isn't
Well,
it?
yeah, exactly. Mass Effect 2 does quite a good job, I think, of filling you in the events of Mass Effect 1. And obviously the continuation in your save file and the story and stuff like that does add a little bit, but in Mass Effect 2 it's quite disappointing in that you'll run into some character and they'll say, "Hey, do you remember me? You saved me in a meaningless side quest in Mass Effect 1," and you go, "Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, who are you?
It's a little bit like that. I'm quite excited
You go, "No,
to see,
sorry,
like,
I didn't save you. I deliberately stood there and watched you die."
I'm quite excited to see the conclusion of the story, even though it's not a great story. Like the strongest points are the points that are kind of locked away behind kind of like character conversations and stuff like that. Like a lot of the personal missions of Mass Effect 2 are the most interesting parts, while the main story is just kind of standard kind of sci-fi nonsense, really.
True enough.
Okay, well, like we said, me and Max are going to play some after this podcast. There will be some sort of video walkthrough, playthrough, whatever you want to call it, up on YouTube later on this week. But for us here at D22 Zone, it is goodbye. Now, just to fill you in, obviously we're relaunching on March 1st. Hooray! Can I get a hooray?
Hooray!
Hooray!
Yes, delay, yes.
So say we all.
And basically, we've got a new website, we've got a few more people joining us. We are potentially having a monthly magazine/newsletter, but this is all secret stuff. So that's all I'm releasing for at the moment, and stay tuned for more podcasts. I think what we'll do is we'll start releasing a bit more information each podcast as we go along. Don't forget that these podcasts will actually, I forgot to mention this earlier, will be moved to Wednesday now. This is only down to the fact that Mondays is a little hectic for us, start of the week, Monday morning.
Editor's getting drunk, that sort of thing.
And that with today being Thursday is completely out of sync with everything.
Exactly. So we'll be moving them towards the middle of the week to make it political. But from here at D22 Zone, it's a jolly well goodbye. Enjoy playing your Mass Effect 3 demo.